Hi everyone, it's Shar and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another speed build. As you saw in the title of today's video, I was trying to do a grayscale maximalist house with Nova in mind. And Nova is the gray gen of the Not So Berry challenge on my channel. Now I really struggled with this house initially, and a lot of the beginning of this video is me trying to figure out the floor plan because I had some inspiration pictures pulled up, and honestly I view Nova as a sim who really wants a traditional kind of home. I'm thinking like something you would see on Fixer Upper. So like modern farmhouse or contemporary farmhouse is what I imagine Nova would want. But part of Nova's story in the Not So Berry challenge is that she's trying to discover herself. And right now, I'm thinking that she's going to go for something that's a little bit closer to her childhood home. So she lives in a big, beautiful, modern mansion in Strangerville. And as a bit of a gift to her, Clover, our yellow gen and Nova's mom, is going to gift her this house. And she had it fully furnished and designed for when Nova moves out of Strangerville and moves into Dalesville Valley. So you can see I pretty much struggled with the floor plan of the house because I wanted it to be one story initially. Then I was like, I'm not going to have the room that I need to make it a one-story house, and it would take up a lot of the lot for me to do that. And I think a big appeal for Nova would be lots and lots of outdoor space. If you don't know the Not So Berry challenge, Nova, who is our gray gen, the gray gen has to have a big family. They want to be like a really fantastic parent, and they have movie nights and all of these things. But I imagined that for Nova in the beginning of her life, like outdoor space would be something that's really important to her because Gray Gen of Not So Berry is also an active sim. Of the floor plan of the entire house, I think I was happiest with the upstairs. So you can see we end up with one really massive bedroom with an ensuite, a smaller bedroom with an ensuite that I eventually convert into an office. I put the bigger room on an angle because I kind of like the dimension that it added to the space. Otherwise, it just felt like a bunch of boxes. Not saying it's the most functional space, but it feels like a comfortable home that I think that Nova would want to move into. So we do end up going super modern, and because I'm feeling somewhat lazy in this video, I didn't want to try to figure out roofing. I knew that I wanted to utilize platforms and half walls, so that's what we end up doing. I use a lot of the eco lifestyle stuff on the roofing and around the house in general because I imagine that Nova would want an energy efficient home. She did not grow up in an energy efficient home because yellow generation of Not So Berry is a scientist, and she had her own science lab. So they were constantly being fined for using too much energy, but they're very, very wealthy. So to Clover, it was just the price worth paying for this pursuit of knowledge. I also do a lot of landscaping, and yes, this house does end up having quite a variety of trees, but I thought it kind of made sense that because they're so rich that Nova just kind of had trees removed and planted onto her property, trees that could still naturally thrive in like the super hot setting of Dalesville Valley, but she still had them picked up and moved, so they're definitely not native to the area, and I just thought that made sense for her backstory, but also I just thought they were pretty. And then I couldn't be bothered to go back into the debug menu, which I'm in right now, to try to find another tree. So what I'm looking for here is actually a car, two cars that I think make sense. I put a bunch of fireflies around, and yes, they do look super pretty at nighttime when we go into live mode. But yeah, I put in some cars. Cars, of course, are not functional in The Sims 4, but it, again, is supposed to be like a flex of wealth because of course Nova and her partner would have sports cars and I do like to kind of like false garage, but of course I don't bother to make the interior a garage. It's just a waste of space in my mind. So instead, what kind of looks like the garage from the outside is truly just the kitchen. The window placements are kind of odd, and I always find myself struggling with window placements, and I end up doing too much. This time I kind of scaled it back and purposely lent into the asymmetrical kind of effect that I was going for in this build. And while Nova is gray gen and I wanted this to be a gray home, that is obviously the theme of this quote unquote not so very build. I did want it to feel like very maximalist because I think that eventually Nova realizes that she has a lot of personality, and what she's struggling with right now is feeling like she doesn't necessarily belong anywhere. She's kind of an outsider, so I want her to find her own path to kind of follow. So with the interior, Nova did grow up wealthy. I imagine Nova to be somewhat of a maximalist in her decor taste, not necessarily in the sense that I think that she is like trying to fill her house with as many things as possible, more so in the sense that I think that she... Okay, brief babysitting intermission. I think I was saying that Nova is a maximalist, but not in the sense that she would have a ton of stuff, but more in the sense that she's drawn to decor that is like very over the top and ornate. So that's the kind of thing I try to put in the backyard. And this house gave me the most trouble. And you can see I keep trying to change the colors to make sure it's just gray, black, and white. So not necessarily the entire house is solidly gray, but everything is definitely grayscale. And I try to incorporate it so it still had a lot of personality in the build. And I really love the wallpaper that came with the decor to the max stuff. Kits, I know it's not everyone's favorite. Everyone has an opinion about kits. I don't personally really like them, but when I saw the decor to the max one, I was like, that's 100% the aesthetic that I want to capture. I wish that I had like the courage to decorate that way. I think pulling that in smaller pieces like decorative objects or furniture is really fun, but when it comes to like wallpaper or things like that, I just know that it would overwhelm me on certain days, so I tend not to go for it. Now, that's the update for the house. I'm going to keep building and furnishing it. I really like how the upstairs turned out. I like certain rooms of the downstairs, but I would say the downstairs gave me the most trouble, especially the living room, because I wanted to keep the quote unquote original fireplace. And the house was obviously renovated, but it ended up not being my favorite room in the house, and that's okay. I think it's realistic because not every room in your home is your favorite room, and there are just some rooms that take a little bit more time to come together. So I like the idea, and that little room with the fancier chandelier is the converted garage, which was converted to the kitchen because, of course, it's The Sims 4. We don't have functional cars. So that's the updates that I have for the house. You're going to see me continue to build. Ultimately, this house ends up being 3 full bathrooms, 2 of which are an ensuite. We have 3 bedrooms, and one of the bedrooms is a converted like recording space because the people that live here, which are going to be Nova and Xander, mild spoiler alert for the not so very challenge, Nova and Xander are going to live here, and they both are super into music, and they have a little recording space because Xander wants to be a famous musician and Nova just likes music as a hobby, of course, because she's the Grey Gen of Not So Berry. So I have the recording space. Also, the layout of this living room was like awkward to work with. I wanted it to be like big open concepts, but struggle to fill the space in entirely. And you'll see eventually I put in like a piano, like a little jukebox thing, and then a microphone and a guitar. So there's lots and lots and lots of activities in this house to keep them entertained. And you can see me literally flipping through so many swatches before I give up. I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna move upstairs because the living room is super challenging to work with. By the way, it's super funny, my little 3-year-old niece is here coloring behind me. If you can hear like scraping on the paper, that is her coloring, and she just stopped to stare dead at me because I'm speaking into a microphone. She's like, what the heck is going on? So that is what is going on there. You can hear her in the background now going to go eat her breakfast. She also left the door open, so give me 1 second. Okay, so I used 2 different kitchen cabinets in here, and I think it kind of works because the color schemes are the same. It felt very Nova and Xander to me, so that's ultimately what I ended up going with. I think it looks great. I do put in double ovens here because it feels like a very wealthy thing to do. I do also realize at the end of the video that I forget to put a sink into the kitchen. They have a dishwasher. Don't worry, I do go in, or I will go in and add a sink to the kitchen, so that will be fully available. And while we are in my Not So Berry save file in this build, I do plan to move this house over to my save file, the one that I'm rebuilding all of the worlds in The Sims for, at least the ones that weren't in collaboration with a EA like game changer person. So I am doing that, but I'm going to move this build over. Obviously Nova and Xander won't live there unless I decide to save them to my gallery and pull them in, which might be fun little like Easter eggs for anyone playing with that save file. If you know my Sims, and you're going to recognize them walking around. It would be really funny if I had all of the generations of Not So Berry in the save file, but of course it would break continuity. But obviously it would also be an alternate world because they're all related and many of them have passed. For example, like Aubrey was our first gen of Not So Berry. She was mint and we're in gray now. So Aubrey is long gone. If I had them all in the same save file, it would be fun to see them walking around, but it would also be odd because you would know like they're all related and you would know the order in which they are related, so it would seem odd. I also really love this downstairs bathroom. Like the all black aesthetic was definitely working for me. I usually don't put laundry into my builds. I have it. I like the laundry day pack because of the build and buy stuff, like the shelf and the little just decorative bits in that room are really cool. But laundry is super annoying, but because Nova really wants to work on parenting, I think it's a great chore for the kids to have. And something that I do incorporate in here is these movie posters, which I put up literally everywhere because I love the idea that Xander is a movie buff. He absolutely loves films and TVs. We have a little bit of sports memorabilia stuff as well all over the home, and that's super sweet. Again, spoilers for Not So Berry. If you don't want to hear it, skip ahead by a minute or so. I will be done. But Nova is obviously Grey Gen of Not So Berry, and part of her aspiration rules is that she needs to have 3 failed relationships. I am fully aware of that. I'm just not acknowledging it fully in my Not So Berry playthrough because I have a storyline in mind for Nova. So while it's super sweet that Xander loves like photography and movies, really anything like media related, he's super into. He's a movie buff. So I love the idea that he and Nova create the tradition of watching movies every Sunday together. And then when they have kids, they do that. But of course, Xander is only Nova's second relationship. So it breaks my heart that that's the origin of the why this family watches movies every Sunday, knowing that their relationship is ultimately not going to work out. So that's really hard for me because I love Xander and Nova together. I think they're such a beautiful couple and they work really well together. Their personalities just complement each other. Sometimes I make Sims. This sounds so sappy. Sometimes I make Sims and I think that they are soulmates and they work super well together and I just love them together. So it's going to hurt me to have to break them up. Technically, I'm bending a Not So Berry rule because it's supposed to be fine. Have 3 failed relationships before you find your spouse, but for me, challenges are all about making your gameplay more fun. I've been on lots of Simsies streams and I'm a subscriber there, so I know she's mentioned this before because she's currently playing her Not So Berry playthrough. She's mentioned many times like she doesn't really care what you choose to do with the Not So Berry challenge and how you choose to play it. It's all about making your game more fun and your gameplay more fun. It's definitely doing that for me, but what's going to be the most fun for me in this generation is that Nova marries, and that's ultimately one of her failed relationships. Also, this guest bedroom turned out so well. I'm sure it's not to everyone's taste, but I think it really fit the whole idea of like kind of Grayscale Maximalist aesthetic and will probably be in the thumbnail of this video. I don't know. I haven't made the thumbnail yet, but if this was your guest bedroom and you invited me over, like I am never leaving. I'm just staying in this room. It's oddly soothing as well because yes, it's super busy and there's a lot going on, but there's one coherent color scheme, and because there's so many like whites and grays, I don't know, I just find it like a very soothing space and a super soothing room. I also just add this little chair there because I imagine it's a place where you like would sit down to put your shoes on. My 2-year-old niece is now outside my door banging on the door demanding that I open it. I'm not going to open it because I'm in the middle of recording a video, so please just ignore her tiny voice. She's outside with her mother, by the way. She is not on her own. but you can definitely hear her shouting. This is the bigger of the bedrooms for Nova and Xander. So I have a little fireplace put in, this cute little seating area. I don't know. It's just a cute room. I think it's adorable. And I chose to keep the same bed that Nova has in her current bedroom because I think she would like it. And I think that she chose to carry it over. And the recording room is a recording room, but I do put office decor stuff into the hallway as well. I'm not even going to pretend I know what I was talking about. I think I was telling you that I turned the hallway somewhat into an office so that they would have a computer and things like that. That's somewhere that Xander would edit his videos. So that's really just the inspiration behind this home. It was somewhat easier to build in the sense that I had 2 Sims already in mind for this home. I knew their interests, the decor style, what they would want to go for, the color scheme, because they're not so berry Sims. So it was pretty easy in that sense, but I also typically don't like decorating homes this large. One, because architecture, not my thing. Like, trying to figure out a floor plan that works and flows is really challenging, but it just takes a really long time. So for example, for this video, it's 23 minutes long, but only because I sped it up so much. The raw footage is about 3 hours, and that was split over a couple of days. So for one day, I did most of the architecture and floor plan of the home, and then for the next day, I ended up just doing the interior design for the home as well. All right, so that's pretty much all the information I have for you about the build, the inspiration behind the build, the Sims, their storylines, and why the house is decorated in the way that it is. So let me just do my general reading updates for you all, because truly, I just love talking to you all about the books I've been reading. I feel like I should start a separate booktube channel, but honestly, with a full-time job and trying to run this channel as well as my Bookstagram, trying to add something else onto that project just seems like setting myself up for failure, but I may end up doing that. The only reason I hesitate is because recording takes a long time, but mostly because editing takes a super long time as well. And I typically don't like to edit like sit down videos of myself. I don't know. I find it odd. It feels odd. It's not odd because I watch YouTube and I have a ton of YouTubers that I watch. It just feels odd to sit down and do it. Plus, I also, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into making a booktube channel. So right now, this outlet of sitting down and chatting with you all about the things that I've been reading, because honestly, you probably are not even watching this video. I tend to watch speed build videos just by putting them on in the background and having it be just like soothing background noise if I'm like just working on something or when I feel like there's just something going on in the background. So let me tell you about what I've been reading. I think for the month of April, I've read like 15 or 16 books, which is great because I have been in a reading slump for the past like 2 months. I read almost nothing in February and like 2 books in March. So April, we are doing super, super well with. So I started off the month by reading The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. I'm not going to give you my full thoughts because I'll have a wrap up at some point on this channel for one of my builds where I just like yak all of my thoughts about the books I've been reading. So I read The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor, which I really enjoyed and gave 5 stars. I read Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellflower, which is a story about an astrologist and a like tax person. It's sapphic and it's really sweet and super cute, and I love their relationship. I gave that 4 stars. I've read The Roommate by Brandy Bush, which is about a girl who goes to stay with her college roommate and fucks both of her parents. Not her own parents. Gross. Her roommate's parents, just to clarify. I read Check Please, which is a book about a freshman in college, and it follows him throughout his college career being a hockey player and falling in love with the captain of the hockey team. I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I didn't tell you what I gave The Roommate. The Roommate, I think I gave like 4 stars. Check Please, I gave like 4.5 stars, somewhere around there. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, I really loved. It is a friends to lover story arc about these 2 friends that go on vacation every year. Their relationship kind of falls out and they decide to do one last vacation together, which I really loved. I gave 5 stars. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm not going to give you the summary for each one of them, or I'll cut something out. Also, how people record this video and not have their mouths go extremely dry, I don't know, because we're pretty much at the end of the interior design. As mentioned, it's the most like busy room in the house, so we'll see how much we change, but definitely is a lot. So then I read the Four Horsemen series by Laura Thalassa. It is a story about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse coming down to Earth to end all of humanity, and human women that convince them not to do that. So we have the first one, which is pestilence, then we have war, then we have famine, and finally we have death. I've read all of these books over the span of like 1 weekend, so that should tell you how much I really, really love them, although they're definitely not without their problems. War specifically had me giving it a side eye at certain points for sure. Then I read Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Sassara, which is about a killer clown in a cornfield trying to murder a bunch of teenagers. I hated it. Truly, run me back my time. I wish I hadn't read that book. I gave it 1 star. And if I didn't give it 1 star, I was feeling generous because it was a 1-star book for me. By the way, the star ratings is never about objectively like whether or not the book was good or bad. It is just about my level of enjoyment, which is completely subjective to me and ultimately says absolutely nothing but whether or not I enjoyed the book. Then I read Railed by the Easter Bunny. You heard that right. That was a TikTok book rec. I gave that 3 stars, and it is exactly what you think it's about. Although the Easter Bunny is obviously a man in this book. Then I read a book I'm not going to tell you about, and a book I'm not going to tell you about. Then I read Heat Haven by Sarah Blue. It is an Omegaverse book. If you don't know what the Omegaverse is, look into it. It's kind of reverse harem. It was interesting. I'm still not fully into the Omegaverse, but I was willing to give it a try. Then I read Raph, which is a buff male nanny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. I really enjoyed that. It was a super fluffy and sweet book about a single mom who has twin girls. Their nanny quits on them unexpectedly, and she hires a new nanny who comes with great recommendations, and they fall in love. Then I read Possessed by the Alien King, and that was my most recent one, and that was by Krista Luna. I gave that 5 stars. I actually really, really loved that one. Yes, it is a sci-fi romance, but it was just super intriguing, and I love the world building about these 2 alien races, right? We have humans, we have an alien race. The world has ended. They're trying to fight over this planet. A deadly disease like kills half their population. And the king and the daughter of the admiral decide to get married to create like a peace treaty of sorts between their people so they can go coexist peacefully on their planet. So that's my reading wrap up. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, but we're in the final 20 seconds of this video. So I really hope that you enjoyed this speed build. If you like speed builds, I post them occasionally on my channel, so make sure you subscribe, stick around, because I mentioned I am creating my own save file. I also play lots of legacy style challenges, including Not So Berry and Whimsy stories, so I hope that you stick around, and I'm going to see you next time. Bye everyone.